want to be able to do them without this thing called mortgage insurance because that's got a bad rap. You want to make sure you hit your CRA requirements. Here's the way you can do it. P.S. Save your borrower about $500 a year in the process. Help this nonprofit to grow its business because we actually generate a profit and then we turn around and are able to do some things that don't generate profits at self-help with some of the money we have. And we're showing the world, you know, that these borrowers that people were afraid to make loans to aren't bad borrowers. You know, they pay on time and things look good. But my job's very different.
Sorry, did you say it was only mortgages? Or?
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's what I do now. And I think what's been useful when I think about community development finance, whether it's microfinance or, so microfinance domestically is when I way back in the day, 5 years ago when I was in the field, you know, we were talking about loans between $500 and $25,000. And then I know there's some groups that take it up to $35,000. The group I work for now, which is the largest nonprofit CDFI in the country, so Community Development Financial Institution. You guys have the largest nonprofit one in the country in your backyard. And I don't think self-help makes $500 commercial loans really. But, and probably Eric can speak to this better than me because Eric interned with our commercial team. I'll give you an example of work self-help's done in Durham you might know about, which is the Tobacco Warehouse Project. If you guys have ever been down there, it's where the new NPR studios are. There's some restaurants and bar. I don't know if you guys know what you guys are. But so that was a deal. You look at downtown Durham, and everyone, you know, Durham has some of the highest murder rates, certainly in the state. And people wanted to redevelop Durham and were afraid to go in. So self-help made a $40 million loan to get the Tobacco Warehouse project started. No one else wanted to make this loan. And now, a couple of years later, they're starting to go into phase 2, and we can't even get in on that project because now all the banks want to make those loans, and they want to make them at such competitive interest rates that we can't keep up. So on the commercial side, that's the largest loan self-help's ever made. There's definitely smaller loans. We had a presentation from one of our commercial borrowers who is a sculptor. He's done actually some of the hand railings in Duke Gardens. He does all this sort of leaf motifs. They're really neat. And he needed maybe $50,000 to expand his workspace. So there is a lot of that. Maybe it was $100,000, but it's not the microfinance. It's larger than microfinance. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If you had gone to law school instead of MBA, like how would your work? Because you're focusing on the finance aspect.
Yeah, it's a good question. In this market, it's really changing. So my job to manage these relationships, right? I mean, this is a market that no one's ever been, right? The mortgage market currently and the bond market that I work in. I have spent a tremendous amount of time the last couple of months reading things like trust agreements to try to understand by law if we want to change a loan so that a borrower has a more affordable interest rate, what by law are we allowed to do because a piece of that loan got sold to someone else. I think that I would probably be doing more advocacy work. So self-help has an advocacy arm for those of you interested in policy, political science, things like that, called the Center for Responsible Lending. And they've done, for example, there's now an interest rate cap of 36% if you've been in the military, which sounds absurdly high still, but it wasn't not a regulated industry before, and you had people who were coming out of service and getting incredibly usurious loans, with over 100% interest by the time things got added up. So CRL was able to get that cap. So I think if I'd gone law, that's the route that I would have taken. Yeah. Yeah.
During your time at Axion, you talked kind of about training. What type of training programs do they have, if any at all? And how do you think they were effective or ineffective?
It's a really good question. So when I got hired on full time, one of my jobs was to take, I think we had $100,000 from the Small Business Administration, survey all of our borrowers across the state of Texas. What sort of technical assistance did they need? And then put together seminars to help them get it. So they needed things like help repairing their credit. Excuse me. So you can get a consumer credit counseling group to come and talk to borrowers about how to do that. But then you need someone kind of to work with them through the process. It's not a, let me give you an hour, it's not a cooking lesson and then you go home and cook, you know? You sort of need someone to help you work through it. So we tried to do that. I don't think those were successful because I don't think I fully understood how much follow-up was required. And then, you know, borrowers would say things like, I just need help marketing. You know, I'm in Brownsville, Texas, this little town in Texas with a predominantly Spanish-speaking population. I want to sell dry cleaning services and I need help marketing. But I couldn't put on a seminar for one person needing to market dry cleaning in a very small town in Texas. You know, so I kind of tried to pull, okay, what's the common denominator on marketing? Okay, you need to design a brand or you need to design a selling statement. And that all works, but that's sometimes not even the scale. So maybe this is someone who had a dry cleaning equipment in their garage, right? So they're not gonna have a storefront. You know, so it's just everything is very specific to the individual borrower. And I thought that that was tricky in terms of really addressing what they needed. I felt like they would sort of say, I need to, you know, learn how to cook. And I was basically able to say, okay, here's the oven and here's some pots and go forth and cook. You know, I never was able to really say what is it you want to make because we just had so many people who needed so many different types.
Do they have any programs specifically with kind of more like financial training in that sense? So, you know, budgeting your loan, budgets.
When I was there, no, but I would hope so. I would hope so. Yeah, I think that, I mean, you have to also know that it's a young industry and it's moved forward very quickly. So I think there's now probably a lot more recognition for the need of that sort of thing.
Do you have any insights what Creamy has been doing up in New York City, or maybe even what they're out going to move to South Carolina? Andrew,
I've heard about it. I don't have
what is
any.
your self-help?
Well, self-help is not involved in microloans.
Right.
I think self-help really tries to be supportive of the community development activities. But to my knowledge, I mean, it wouldn't fall into the group I work with, but to my knowledge, we aren't involved in that. I mean, that's a whole other question, right? So what do you think of peer lending? Do you think that there's significant social capital in a community to make it work? You know?
What about the pricing differential between the loans that you made in Texas and what, you know, a prime borrower might get?
Yeah.
How big was that spread?
Pretty big. So, I mean, I don't know how things have changed. And okay, so let's say prime was maybe 7% then. So prime is the rate, like you have good credit. Basically prime is for the borrower that the bank wants to lend to. So you have good credit, you seem like you got a good income, you kind of know what's going on, they're going to make you a loan. They'll probably be able to give you prime. Right now it's low, it's like 5% maybe even lower than that, 4. But let's say back then it was 7. I think our loans were anywhere from 10 to 12%, which is considered high, you know. And there was internal conversation around that. So you have to build in administrative costs to the organization. You have to build in a little bit of return on the investment so that you make money, right? In some instances,